Okay, Romans 12 is where we are. This is the practical part of Romans. It's the part that a lot of guys can't wait to get to after 11 chapters of pretty heavy theology. 1 to 11, Paul builds this argument as we walk through now the last several months together. Now 12, he's going to do kind of the so now what? In light of all this, if all that's true, then what? Theology without practicality is nothing but a head game. It means you might know a lot of stuff, you might understand a lot of theological concepts, but if you can't live the Christian life in pursuit of the character of Christ, then it's not even worth knowing. There's no point in knowing. In fact, you're held to a higher standard. The more stuff you know, if you're not living it out. So I always feel challenged all the time that God's given me an opportunity to study and learn so much, and sometimes I struggle so much to live it out the way it should be lived, but thankfully we have the mercies of God. 2 Corinthians 1:3 says this, "Blessed be the God and Father, our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our afflictions, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction, with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." He is the God of all comfort. Some Bibles might say he is the God of all mercies. Right? That is the God we serve. And that is the grace of God, that even there that you and I live such imperfect lives, at the end of the day, God's love pervades our whole life, doesn't it? That he longs for us to pursue him, but in our imperfections, he still loves us. One of my favorite parables, Luke 7, I'm just kind of read it, and then we're going to pivot to Romans 12. It's in Luke 7, beginning in verse 41. Jesus said, "A certain moneylender had two debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. When they could not pay, he canceled the debt of both. Now which of them will love him more?" Simon answered, "The one, I suppose, for whom he called the larger debt, canceled the larger debt." And he said to him, "You have judged rightly." Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet. She has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little loves little." What's the principle here that Jesus is talking about? What's the principle?
Mercy.
It's mercy. That when you truly embrace what God has truly done, that should have a transformational effect on our lives and how we pursue God and how we treat each other. That's the idea. So you now get to chapter 12, and it's one of the big therefores. "I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the," what's your Bible say?
Mercies.
By the mercies of God. By the, some of you might say, it might be the compassion of God. It's this idea of this deep love, this deep, our word today might be the word empathy. That God has a deep empathy. Isn't that crazy when you think about that? Like the God of the universe has a deep empathy for us. Meaning that he understands exactly what our plight is. He made us. He created us. He knows every feeling, every testing, every temptation, every challenge. He knows it intimately. And yet, he is the God of all mercies. He's the God of all compassion. That he, what's that commercial? He gets us. Isn't that what that big Super Bowl commercial was? It's a great phrase. He gets us. God's not surprised by the challenge and the struggle. He fully gets us. Hebrews says he was tempted in all things, but what? Yet without sin. Right? If you had a temptation-ometer and it goes to 10, Jesus went to 10 every time. It never beat him. Right? For us, it might go to, well, for Tony, it might go to 9. You know, for Bear, it goes to 2.
On a good day.
On a good day. He was tempted in all things, yet without sin. He understands this. He gets the struggle that we have. So he says, "I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. The context is this. Why is he saying we should present our bodies as a holy and living sacrifice? Because of the mercies of God. Well, what's the context of that? What's he referring to, do you think?
You've been forgiven much.
That's right. Chapters 1 to 8, and even 9 to 11. Right? Some commentators say Paul is really going to 1 to 8. I think he's going to 1 to 11. Like when you look at the entire book of Romans, it is nothing but the mercy of God. Because chapter 1 says, who's guilty?
All have sinned.
All have sinned. Creation condemns you. Chapter 2, conscience condemns you. The moral law condemns you. Chapter 3, everyone is guilty. Chapter 4, if you have the faith that Abraham had, it's all it takes is the faith of Abraham. Believe by faith, you'll be saved. Chapter 5, you'll have peace with God. Chapter 6, you're given a new nature. Chapter 7, the struggle's still there. Chapter 8, we are justified by God. There's no condemnation, and nothing can separate you from the love of God. 9, 10, 11, he's the God of all promises. He loves his people, the Jews. Gave them a spirit of stupor for a period of time so he could draw all of us in, all the Gentiles in. 9, 10, 11, he is a good and compassionate God. All the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Now all of us are coming in. We're all being gathered in. It is the fullness of the Gentiles. He is merciful. He is compassionate. Nobody in the world deserved this mercy and this compassion. Therefore, in light of his mercies, present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. That was actually one of the criterion of a sacrifice, wasn't it? An acceptable sacrifice. Mike, what was wrong with Cain's sacrifice? Do you remember? The very first sacrifice in your Bible, Cain and Abel. God accepted Abel's sacrifice. He rejected Cain's. Remember why?
Part of the attitude.
It's part of his attitude. It was an unacceptable sacrifice. He knew that Abel gave him the first fruits of his sacrifice. He gave him his best. Cain did not. God rejects the unacceptable sacrifice. And what God is saying is our lives are that sacrifice. Let us offer an acceptable sacrifice to God. And it's a living sacrifice. It's a living. Even though Paul uses both, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, right? But who lives in me? Christ. So my life that I live, the life that I have, is the life that is infused by Christ. And Paul is saying, let that old, carnal, narcissistic self die. Consider that self dead. But I want Christ in you to live. And that's the life I want you to put on the altar. Lay your life down on that altar. It's living. It's holy. It's acceptable to God. Which is your spiritual worship. Verse 2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. That one verse, I believe, if there is a driving mechanism of change in your Bible, that is it. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes.
It all starts in the mind. I remember when I was in high school, I was very fortunate. In 1984, I had a tennis coach. He was doing his PhD in sports psychology. And that was literally at the cutting edge when sports psychology was just really coming onto the scene. And my coach was studying that at TWU, sports psychology. And I remember he used to always tell me, he'd say, Walter, every night before you go to bed, he said, on your way as you're drifting off to sleep, he said, every night, imagine with the greatest specificity in your mind, watching yourself playing a tennis match. Watch every shot. Watch yourself rushing the net, hitting volleys, serving, coming to the net, forehands, backhand down the lines. He said, see it every night before you go to bed. Don't let a night go by that you don't practice visualization with tennis. And I started doing that, and every night, to this day, I practice this visualization in my mind every night as I fall asleep. Every night I have things in my life that I practice this, and I see things. And it's just part of getting your mind right. It's about transforming the mind, because what your mind gets transformed to is what you conform yourself to. What you spend your time thinking about is what you become over time. Great book by James K. Smith. If you haven't read it, You Are What You Love. Did you know that? You are what you love. I remember I was at a refinery one time. I had a client out in New Mexico, and I was telling this guy, you are what you love. He goes, what does that mean? I said, tell me something you hate. He goes, I hate smoking. I said, you hate smoking? I said, you smoke? He goes, yeah. I said, how long you smoked? He goes, 50 years. I said, you smoke every day? He goes, oh yeah. I said, how much you smoke? He goes, a lot. I said, you smoked 50 years every day, a lot. And you hate it? He goes, I hate it. I said, no, you don't. You love it. He goes, no, I don't. I said, yeah, you do. I said, you know what you hate? You hate that you love it. And he stopped. He goes, you're right. That's what it is. I hate that I love it. And he said, my wife wants me to kick it. I really do. Sometimes I want to kick it. What do I need to do? What's he need to do?
Renew his mind.
What's that?
Renew his mind.
Here are the options.
Will.
You can tell him something ridiculous. I mean, it makes sense, but it's ridiculous. You could say this. You have to hate smoking. Good luck. That's not the right plan. No, you have to love something more than smoking. You have to have something that eclipses your love. You got to find a greater love. And as that greater love grows, what happens to that lesser love over time? It shrivels. You stop feeding it. Suddenly it doesn't have the same hold on your heart that it used to have. So by loving the greater love, the lesser love over time becomes diminished. Right? That's why you can't tell some guy, listen, to overcome porn, you got to hate porn. Right? Good luck for some guys. Right? No, you got to love something more than that. You got to love something for your soul more than that. You got to love the God of all mercies more than that. And the more you love Him, and the more you love something more than that, the more your soul begins to get enriched and grow. Right? And all of us who have struggled with that in our lives know what happens to the soul. It just gets weighted down. It just gets corrupted. See? Because you're feeding the wrong beast inside of you. This is what Paul is saying, right? He's saying, don't be conformed. Don't let your mind be conformed to the things of the world. What do you think are the things of this world? What do you think he's referring to?
Money, greed, power.
That's it. All those things have one thing in common, right, Bear? They all have values. Don't conform yourself to the values of this world.
Put your mind on the things of God.
It's the horizontal and the vertical. If you live for the horizontal and the cares and the worries of this world are where your heart is set on, you will worry yourself sick. You will stress yourself to death the longer my mind is set on the things below. Right? I will always struggle with those things. This is the world I live in. I mean, the bills keep coming in. Right? Relationships continue to have their challenges. But I can't set my mind on the things below. I have to actively set my mind on the things above. Right? And this is what Paul is saying. Because of the mercies of God, set your mind on those things above. Right? This is why, I remember growing up for so many years. I remember my time in the Bible was so much about kind of my duty, my responsibility. I've got to read my Bible. Right? It was more like I've got to learn the book. I've got to study the book. It wasn't because I didn't love God. I was really kind of duty-driven, responsibility-driven, not realizing that what is the role of the Bible? Why did God give us this book?
Teaching, training, correction.
Teaching, training, correction of what? Teaching what part of me? My brain?
Mind, will, and emotion.
Okay. You got all the right answers, Nico. You're doing good, man. It's the heart. It's the heart. Right? The Bible talks about how it's the heart. Out of the heart flows all the issues of life. So if my Bible isn't shaping my heart, I'm just learning history. That's all I'm learning. I'm learning history. I can remember, if I can just share candidly, I can remember when I went through a really tough period of time in my life, and when I was married and we were separated. I remember, and I had my own struggles at that time, and I remember walking into my back. I lived on Nottingham, on the other side of town, and I remember you pulled into the driveway and you come in through the back, and I remember I walked into my house and I had a built-in bookshelf, and I probably had 500-600 books in that shelf right there, and it was apologetics and theology and history and all that kind of stuff. And I remember in this moment, I had a book in my hand, and I remember I walked in and I looked at that shelf, And I don't know what it was that hit me. I remember I took that book in my hand. I remember I threw it as hard as I could into my bookshelf. Because it made me realize you could read every one of those books and you can't even keep a marriage together. Yeah? That's what I felt. It's like I could teach and walk anybody through any of that stuff. And I can't even manage my own life. I can't even manage my own impulses sometimes. Right? And this is what he's talking about. Paul is talking about this idea of our hearts. Right? That we have to, don't let our minds, which really is this concept of your affections, don't let them be conformed to the things of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Why is it renewal? What's something you got to renew?
Your driver's license.
Your driver's license. Yeah. Every how many years?
I don't do it.
Your passport. The DMV. Dang it. Got to go get that inspection every year, right? The idea is you have to keep going back. It's a renewal. Keep going back. And Paul is saying that our minds have to be renewed, right? Let's ask ourselves the honest question. How are we renewing our minds? How are we renewing our minds? And whatever we think we're doing, how is that actually renewing the mind? Is it really renewing the mind? Or am I just participating? Right? That was a big part of my problem, right? The mind wasn't being really renewed. And he says, be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. In other words, if I want to really be led by God, I've got to let my mind be transformed. I've got to offer my life as a living sacrifice unto God. The more distractions I have in my life, the harder it is to discern the will of God that is good and acceptable. Right? Because there's too many confusing thoughts going on inside my mind and my body. My desires are no longer really aligned with God's desires. And so many benefits come from this act of sacrifice that we lay ourselves on that altar for God. By the way, what are the main reasons as believers sometimes it's so hard to offer ourselves, which I believe is what bodies means? A lot of times people go to this verse and they hit you over the head with your sexuality. I think your bodies means the totality of who you are. It's your life. Offer your life as a living sacrifice. Why is that so hard for us as believers to sometimes offer our lives as a living sacrifice? What do you think?
Because the living sacrifice keeps crawling off the altar.
Well, it does. It has a will of its own, doesn't it, Jim? It's got that dang will that says, man, I think I like my life better. I think that's true. There's a sense of, I want to live my life. What else?
The flesh is weak.
What's that?
The flesh is
The
weak.
flesh is weak. Absolutely. It's easily provoked, isn't it?
Correct.
One of my favorite quotes by the great, if I may quote a Catholic thinker, by the great Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Remember, Fulton Sheen once said, the pleasures of the flesh are always greater in anticipation than in realization. But the pleasures of the Spirit are always greater in realization than in anticipation. Isn't that true? You're all excited about that thing you're going to go do, that thing you're going to get. The anticipation is so great.
Isn't it a yellow shirt? You remember that story?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Then you get it, and then what?
It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's a shirt.
It's nice. It's a shirt. It's nice. The vehicle smells good. It's good, right? The Raptor's nice. I sit up nice and high. Right? It's nice, right? The anticipation of, oh, dude, I'm gonna get, right? It's great. Stacy and I went to Anguilla. Wow. The anticipation for weeks. Honey, are you excited? I'm excited. Man, we need this. Oh, we're talking all the time about how excited we are. Now, we got there. It was awesome. It was beautiful. But it doesn't compare to the 3 weeks of excitement I had leading up to it. Man, we were excited. Just, right? That's how it is. Pleasures of the Spirit are greater in realization than in anticipation. Look, you go out right now and tell some guy, hey, listen, I'd love for you to come to a Friday morning men's study, 7 a.m. Get together with a bunch of guys. We're going to be studying the Bible together. All right. Not a lot of anticipation for that. But all of a sudden they come and they
It's
sit.
your wall, and it's over.
No. They come and they see you guys, right? And then they feel love. They get you a cup of coffee and you get you, well, not now because Mark's out for a little bit, but you get you a blueberry donut. And you sit down and suddenly God starts maybe speaking to you a little bit. And you're like, God, this is the best hour of my week. Never thought it'd be this good. Never thought it'd be this great. That's what it's like. Verse 3, he says, "For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think himself more highly than he ought to think." What do you think he means by that? I love that Paul can say this. "For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think more highly of yourself than you ought to think." If anybody had the right to think more highly of themselves, who was it?
Paul.
Why? You know his resume. Kevin, give me one part of his resume. You've been batting 1,000 today. Don't ruin it now.
Well, the resume of Paul?
Okay, you already, yeah. Yeah. His background. What
Well,
made
he
him...
was- He was a Jew of Jews.
There you go. All right, you're still batting 1,000. Jew. What else? Pharisee of Pharisees.
Circumcised on the 8th.
Circumcised on the 8th. There's no... Ever since he was a child, he's obeyed the law from 8 days on. Right? Obedient to law. Nobody is better than him in terms of fulfilling the law. Right? Paul was the man. Studied under... Who did he study under? Jeff, who did he study under? Gamaliel. The great Gamaliel. The teacher of Israel. Paul studies under him. You pull out his resume, he is nothing but a stud. And yet, Paul says the grace of God has showed him that he is no better than anyone else. No better than anyone else. And he says, hey, you too, don't think more highly than you ought to think of yourself. Now remember, he's writing to the Romans here. So there's two groups that are in tension together. The Jews and the Gentiles. Both of them think more highly of themselves. Why do you think the Jews think more highly of themselves?
So God's chosen.
We're God's people. We were the original one. We're the root. You're a bunch of branches. We're the root. See? Paul says, I cut you guys off. I grafted the Gentiles in. They are no different than you. Right? Now the Gentiles, what do they have reason to boast for?
Rome.
We're in Rome. We are in the city, the greatest city in the world. Look at us. We're the Gentiles. We're taking the gospel out. Right? God has now gone to us. He's passed over you guys because you guys were disobedient. We are faithful Gentiles that God is now taking the gospel to. And Paul's saying, don't any of you have any sort of confidence in the flesh or confidence in yourselves, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. Wow, that's a really interesting line. That God has accorded each one of us a measure of faith. It's a measure of trust is really the word there. That we have measure in our life that God won't push us more than we're able, but all of us have a different measure of faith. There's some of you guys here, man, you blow us away in your faith in God and just your trust and your dedication. And then the rest of us, man, we're just holding on by a thread sometimes. Right? We're just holding on and just believing in the smallest promise possible. God gives this measure of faith to each person. He assigns it. And for some people, they go do great things. Right? They have great impacts, depending on the measure of faith that they have. For as in one body, for as in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function. So we, though many, are one body in Christ, and individually members of one another, having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us. Let us use them. He's going to walk through them. And there's different measure of faith, different measure of gifts. It's a little bit like, I was thinking of an analogy. It's kind of like, it's like a relay. I was watching this amazing, the women's relay in the Olympics, the last Olympics. And each runner, and I don't know the order how they do it, I know obviously the anchor is the strongest runner. But each runner is different, and you're not meant to try to run like one of the other legs. There's a strategy to how each runner runs, and they put them in the order that they're meant to be in. Don't try to be in another order. Don't try to be in another lane. Run the race, run the lane, run the way you're meant to run, whatever that is. And he's about to tell you what your lanes are. And he gives you a bunch. It's not exhaustive, just a few examples here. Look what he says. He says, if prophecy in proportion to our faith. This isn't meaning foretelling, although prophecy could be that. It means the person who's prophetic with their words. They're forthtelling. They're truth tellers. Right? There's some people that is your gift. You know how to be a truth teller. It doesn't mean that you're the guy on the corner screaming and calling everybody every horrible word possible. It means you have an ability to speak the truth directly. And you can do it in such a way that people can hear it. Y'all ever met somebody like that? They just know how to be honest and direct and speak directly to the hearts of people. And they do it in a way that does not cause division or separation. They just have a gift. It's a gift. Not just them. If service, in our serving, there's some people, they are just bent and wired to serve. They have a heart. Anybody needs anything, they're there. These are amazing people to me. They're always available to help. Travis, you've got a lot of that gift in you. Whatever you need, I'm there for you. Let me know. I can help. Let me back my truck up. Let me do this. I'll come look at that. Right? Jack, you got a ton of that. Right? I know. I'll help you. But it's not because it's my gift. Right? But some of you guys, it's like you live to help in that way. And it's one of the greater gifts. It's one of the greater gifts, in my opinion. What's the next one? In our serving, the one who teaches in his teaching. The one who exhorts in his exhortation. The one who contributes in their generosity. The one who leads with zeal. And the one who does acts of mercy with cheerfulness. All very different. As I went through that list, it's not a bad idea sometimes to go, which of those resonated with my spirit when I read all those words? Which one of those kind of bumps up against me? Like, I think that's what I like to do. I think that's what I'm good at. And then ask yourself, how am I leveraging that gift? Verse 9, let love be what? What's your Bible say? Sincere. What's your say? Without hypocrisy. Yeah, it's the idea of being genuine. You guys might know this. The word for sincere, it's kind of a fun word, and it means without wax. It's because it used to be, remember what they used to do? If they made pottery a little bit too thin, kind of cheap, and had some small cracks in it, what would they do? Put a little wax in those cracks. Right? And then that way people wouldn't know that this thing is defective. Right? It's not sincere. It's cheap. This is the same word. In Greek, there's a word for sincere. It's the word heliokrinos. And in Greek, that means, what's helio? Sun. Like a heliocentric unit. The sun. Krine means judge. To judge. It's sun judged. What would happen is you would take this pottery and you would hold it to the sun. So if you're in the market and you see this thing and you want to know if it is sincere, you would take it and you would hold it up to the sun. And what would the sun show you? It would show you if there's any cracks. If there's wax in your cracks. That's what it would show you. Right? And if there's no wax in your cracks, it was sincere. It was without hypocrisy. It was genuine. And what Paul is saying is let your love be genuine. Don't simply do on the outside what's not congruent with you on the inside. Don't be a fake, is what he's saying. Right? Let your light shine before men. Right? This is the idea. Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. These statements that Paul is making are what are known as idealistic statements. We should go through life and abhor things that are evil. How do you over time, excuse me, I already gave the answer earlier. How do you over time learn to abhor what is evil?
Love what is good.
Love what is good. The more you love what is good, the more you abhor those things that don't compete, don't compare with it, that don't meet up with it. Right? That's how it is. You don't have to go around and make a list of all the things you're supposed to hate and then start praying that God would give you a heart of hate. And that's not how you do it. You love the things that are good. Right? So, if I want to love fidelity and faithfulness, if I want to love that more, I need to love my wife more and more every day, which means I need to learn to do those things that create deeper love in my marriage, which means I have to be humble, right? And I have to be able to ask forgiveness when we're off. I need to be able to sacrifice and serve and do those things, and so does she. And the more that love deepens, the more everything else pales. It's just superficial in comparison. That's how you do it. So let's not put the burden on ourselves of having to hate certain things that might have a hold in our lives. Instead, learn to love those things that are greater than that. And over the time, those things begin to fall away. And he says, verse 10, love one another with brotherly affection. One reason why I love you guys, I love how long everybody hangs out afterwards. I love that breakfast afterwards a bunch of you guys go to. I love seeing you guys hugging each other. I love the affection that you have. I love how easily when some of you have come up here to share your story. I love the tears in your eyes. I love how much people just encourage you. It's incredible. Outdo one another in showing honor. Verse 11. Do not be slothful in zeal. What does yours read? This is the ESV, by the way. It's not my normal translation. Well, do not be slothful in zeal. What does that mean? What's yours say?
Well,
Do not lack diligence.
Do not what?
Lack diligence.
Do not lack diligence.
never be lacking in zeal.
Yeah.
Don't be lazy.
The idea is that we have a heart that's wired to be full on passionate for God. Don't let sloth take root. Don't allow laziness to take root. You know, I've got this, when I travel, I do this, I've got this illustration that I teach with all my clients, and it's, I draw a mountain. And at the top of the mountain, I write the word peak, kind of like peak performance. And then in the middle of the mountain, some of you have heard me talk about it, in the middle of the mountain, there's a great Latin phrase. It's medius ocris. What word do we get in English from medius ocris? Mediocre. In Latin, medius means what? Middle. Ocris, not okra, ocrus means a jagged mountain. And a mediocre person is someone who lives in the middle of the mountain. They get to the middle of the mountain. They said they wanted to get to the top. They get to the middle. They look out over the view, and what do they say?
Good enough.
Good.
It's good enough. Paul says, don't be that person. Right? And there's one person worse than the medius ocris person. It's the slothful person. Because where are they on the mountain?
Beds.
They're in bed. They haven't even gotten to the mountain yet. They're at the base. They're looking at the middle going, God, that's a long way up there. That's a lot of work up there. Right? Paul says, no. Let's go for the top of the mountain, the peak of the mountain. Don't let sloth eclipse your zeal for the Lord. Be fervent in spirit. By the way, be fervent in spirit. Paul tells Timothy, do you remember? About fanning what? Remember what he says? Do not be timid. But he says, what does he tell him to do? How do you not be timid, Timothy? What's that? Fan the flame. Stir it up. Some translations say, stir it up, Timothy. You can't just wait to be hit by the Holy Spirit. You can't just go and raise your hands up and go, fill me, Jesus. Fill me, Jesus. Right? Or as Tony Campolo once said, that doesn't work because you leak. Right? The way you do it is you got to fan the flame. You got to go out and do it. You got to put yourself out there. Aristotle once said, in order to be courageous, one must do courageous things. Right? In order to be a person of strong faith, what do you got to do? You got to put yourself out there in faith. Stir it up. It's like, I love the analogy. It's like getting 2 glasses of milk, and you pour chocolate, Hershey's chocolate, on both of them. And on one of them, you stir it up. They both have the same amount of chocolate in there. Question, are they both chocolate milk?
Not yet.
What's that? Not yet? They're both milk with chocolate in it. Yeah. Which one is chocolate milk?
The one you mixed
The
up.
one that's stirred. See? That's the difference. And now when you taste it, man, it's a different kind of taste. It just, dopamine flows through the brain. That sweet chocolate. The other one, it's got chocolate in it. You take a drink of it, it's all in the bottom. What are you tasting?
Milk.
Borden's. It's white milk. That's all you're tasting there. That's the difference. And he says, let's stir it up, right? What verse is that? Where am I at?
11.
11. Do not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Verse 12. Rejoice in hope. I love that. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. You know why he tells them? Now think about this. This is 1st century AD. Rejoice in hope. Why would he tell them that? What kind of life do you think they're experiencing?
Being persecuted.
Harsh, rejection, cast out. And he says, rejoice in hope that this life is not all there is, that the sufferings of this present world are nothing in comparison with the things to come. And not just that, but he says, be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. What's he telling them to do?
Taking your gifts and apply it towards them.
Serve others, love others, pray, be patient. Continue to lean on hope. Right? These are the gears of the Christian life. Life is hard. Life is difficult. And he says this is what you have to do. Serve others, pray, and trust God. But I can remember during phases of my life how important this was for me, of just being part of a community and serving however I could to help and meeting with. And I remember every time I would meet with somebody, I just felt hope. I felt like God was just sustaining me through the days. The times I did my worst when I was all alone, those are the worst, right? And he says, no, serve, help, meet the needs of other people. 14, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Don't see yourself as better than somebody else. Don't look down on anybody else. You ever had anybody look down on you? You ever been around people that look down on people? Okay? It's offensive when you begin to think about it. It's just offensive when you see how people sometimes elevate themselves above others. It's a lot like, you can see a lot of this in James, by the way. Right? The earliest book written, well, Galatians and James. This idea of what the early Christian community was called to do is view everybody the same, treat everybody the same. Right? I remember when I taught this study years ago, and one of the guys in the study, he was a verified billionaire. And I remember he got invited to this church. They wanted him to come. They invited him all the time to come to their church and come visit. Finally, he and his wife decided that they were going to be able to go. And so he was telling us in the study that they were going to go this next Sunday. We're like, hey, we can't hear how it goes. Can't wait to hear how it goes. He gets there. Man, they had an attendant at the beginning of at the front end of the church when they pulled in, waiting for them to pull up. And they had people looking out for them and pulled them up. Guess where they parked them? Right there, front row, man. Not even first-time visitor. Like front of the church. Escorted them out of the car.
In the sanctuary.
behind the sanctuary, back to where the pastor was. Took him back to do a little meet and greet with the pastor. Spent a little time talking to him. Put them right there in the front row. Gave them all the honors. It's like, have you guys read James? This is unbelievable. I remember they came back the next week to tell us what it was like, and they're just walking through the red carpet treatment. Right? Just totally violating what the scripture says. Excuse me. Never be conceited. 17. Repay no evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. What does that mean? As far as it depends on you. What's Paul telling us to do?
Go as far as you can.
Do your part. You can't control whether or not somebody else wants to live peaceably with you. You can't control if they want to forgive you. You can't control if they want to shake hands and make amends. But you know what you can't control? You can make it right with them. You go to them. Stacy and I teach this model all over the place. It's about this idea of going in the box. Going in the box. And the whole idea is that when you go in the box and you feel hurt like a victim by somebody, victims victimize. You react out of that. You begin to hurt back. Victims victimize. Get out of the box. So the way you do that is you got to go and you got to rectify it. You got to go to somebody and say, listen, I want to apologize to you. I should not have reacted that way. I should not have spoken. It doesn't matter what they did to you. You got to own you. And you go to them and you say, I want to apologize for how I handled myself. That's not the person I want to be. Please forgive me for what I did. Now, whether or not they come back and say, well, I'm sorry too, is irrelevant. In fact, I remember one guy said to me, hey, that model you taught us, it doesn't work. I said, what do you mean it doesn't work? He goes, I went and I decided to get out of the box and go apologize, and I waited for them to apologize back, and they didn't. And I go, well, then you were never out of the box because you were just using that model as a technique to manipulate them. You were in the box apologizing.
Good for good, evil for evil.
That's it.
Keeping hot coals.
You, as far as you are able, you go to them. You rest well at night. You put your head on the pillow at night knowing you went to them and said, I'm sorry. For my part, I'm sorry. Then he says, 19, Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay the Lord. There's so much injustice in this world. Do not become a vigilante. Then he says, to the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Love covers a multitude of sins, and when it doesn't, you will provide a conviction towards other people for the way they've treated you. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. With good. It's a great way to end the chapter because what Paul is saying is the way you overcome evil is you love good more than you love evil. Right? That's what Paul says. So chapter 12 is all about the constitution of our hearts. That when you realize what God has done for every one of us, and where I was and where I am, and He is with me, and He'll never forsake me, and there's nothing that will ever cause a separation of God's love for me, the more that truth gets deeply into me, the more Romans 12 takes effect. Because now I want to live my life in a way that is a living sacrifice to God. And say, God, my mind, my heart, my body is yours. And when I fail, He is a God of all mercies.